Okay, this last section 8.6 is kind of a special chapter because we're talking about special quadrilaterals. And we're going to talk about this in class a little bit more. I think it'll be a little bit easier to explain than this, but we can at least get some basics down here pretty quick. Alright, well, quadrilaterals are broken up into a bunch of groups. For instance, quadrilaterals break into parallelograms. And if we kind of follow the tree down, a parallelogram could be a rectangle, it could be a rhombus, and in fact, a square is both a rectangle and a rhombus. Okay, so we can kind of, if we're given some information, we can identify what shape we might be talking about. So in this first example, quadrilateral ABCD has at least one pair of opposite angles that are congruent. Well, let's look here, because we want to figure out which type of quadrilaterals meet this condition. We want opposite angles that are congruent. So immediately, we can throw out the isosceles trapezoid and the trapezoid, right? Because we want opposite angles. That would have to be like this angle congruent to this angle. That's definitely not the case, right? So those two are out. It can't just be a broad quadrilateral. That's not specific enough. So let's see. And we want at least one pair of opposite angles congruent. Well, it looks like the square works, right? Because we've got these angles are congruent, opposite angles. The rectangle works. I think that the rhombus works, right? I think that we would have opposite angles there, congruent. And I think we could prove this in a parallelogram that we've got opposite angles congruent also in a parallelogram. The only question is, what about the kite? Does the kite have one pair of opposite angles? Why don't you take a shot at that first? Write down what you think and then pause it or whatever, and then check. And I think that a kite does in fact have one pair of opposite angles. Now remember, these are not congruent, but though these angles over here, those are congruent. Okay, so let's write that real quick. Okay, so you should have this: parallelogram, kite, square, rhombus, and rectangle for the quadrilaterals with at least one pair of opposite angles congruent. Okay, in the next example, I want you to try on your own. Okay, so using those kind of basic, that definition that I give you, what types of quadrilaterals satisfy that condition. And then that last example we're going to do in class for the warm-up. It's kind of a special one that I don't think I could really do it justice on the iPad here. So we're going to do that one in class. So these notes are only a few minutes long. And then you notice in the homework we've got to kind of use a little bit more reasoning and just kind of use these definitions we've already learned to help us out a little bit more as far as identifying what is actually a rectangle, what is actually a trapezoid. So it's kind of a neat section in that there's not that many notes, but it's a lot of kind of logic and reasoning. So we'll see you tomorrow in class, and we'll kind of finish up the section in class, and then hopefully the homework will go pretty well, and you'll be ready for the quiz. All right, have a great day.